What's up guys, Artem MMA Analysis here, and we're going to be talking about UFC Fight Night Blaydes versus Daukaus, also known as UFC Fight Night Columbus, taking place in Columbus, Ohio. Don't know if there's going to be a crowd or not. Someone let me know if there will be a crowd or not in attendance in the comments below, but just straight up, I'm looking forward to this card. I went 9-3 and last card, which I guess isn't really the greatest result, but I did go 2-0 for the parlays that I posted. Only one parlay that I'm going to be posting for this one card, unfortunately for you guys, but it's a parlay that I've got a bit on. So we've got Aleksandar in the first leg of the parlay, and then to finish off the parlay we've got Vyacheslav Borshev. I do think that you could add Magny onto the parlay as well, just if you want to get a 3-fighter parlay. And then if you want to put a 4th fighter on there, I'd put David Dvorak. I think he would probably add a decent amount of value onto that one. But that's my parlay, my 2-fighter parlay. We've got Kizriev and we've also got Slava Borshev. Best of luck to everyone. This was the weekend, and let's get into the video. Alright, to start off the night, we do have a fight which I don't actually have too much confidence in. I'm going to say that straight out the bat. But I will be picking the underdog here, Bruno Souza. I do think that he's got the highest ceiling. He's fighting out of Machida Academy. I believe that they're going to help him out a little bit on this one. He is a Lyoto Machida prospect, former LFA champion as well. I think he earned that championship over Javier Garcia just before he made it into the UFC against Malsik Baghdasaryan. He took that fight on very short notice. Malsik Baghdasaryan, as we know, very legitimate striker, and he lost a decision. On the other hand, Saldana, very known for a finisher. He's got great stand-up, and he's also got great submissions as well. That win over Griffin, on the other hand, was actually his first decision win of his career. He's got 14 finishes, 8 by submission, 6 by knockout, and his one decision win is actually his one win in the UFC over Griffin. And then he lost to Austin Lingo as well in that following fight. Now he's coming back. He's bouncing back against Bruno Souza, a guy who's 0-1 in the UFC, sorry. But I do think that the UFC are putting a little bit of faith in Bruno Souza to get this one done. I'm trusting Bruno Souza. He is actually pretty good all around, but I do think he's very good in the striking. Saldana, great boxing. I mean, he knocked out Vince Murdoch with a front kick, which is very impressive on a Dana White's Contender Series fight. But Vince Murdoch recently lost to a guy that was 2-7, so that's a fall from grace if I've ever seen one. But Saldana fighting out of the MMA lab, we know that he's going to be coming out here very good. He's going to have made improvements since his last fight against Austin. But personally, I will be picking Bruno Souza to get the job done in this one here. Not a lot of confidence though. Could be wrong to start the night. I mean, I wouldn't really be too surprised either way on who wins. I do think the fight goes the distance. I don't think that Saldana is going to be able to finish off Bruno Souza. Although Saldana is a finisher himself, I just don't know if he's going to be able to finish off a guy like Bruno. So I'm going to be picking Bruno Souza to win the fight by a decision here, but not a lot of confidence. Definitely not a bet to be made on this fight for sure. Alright, if we get into the next one, we're going to be looking at Aleksandar versus Denis Julian. If you guys are watching the full video and you saw my intro, you'll know that I'm pretty big on Aleksandar to win this fight here. Striker versus grappler matchup. Aleksandar only 5'9" for the 185-pound division. Going to be interesting to see how that kind of looks up against a guy that is going to be 4 inches taller than him. I'm going to assume that he's going to have a reach advantage too, and Denis Julian is going to have the striking advantage in my opinion too, as he's a great striker. On the other hand though, if we look at Denis Julian, he's actually on a little bit of a streak right now. He's 4-1 in his last 5. He's kind of turned his career around, I guess. I mean, he was 6-4 at one point. He did bounce back against a couple of guys that aren't really that great, but then he did knock out a guy who's quite good in the first round against Julian Ferreira, and now he's taking this fight on short notice against Aleksandar. I can't remember who Aleksandar yeah, so he had a lot of different opponents, but his opponent for this fight was meant to be Abu Sapayan Magomedov, who I believe is a German fighter. Unfortunately, yes, he wasn't able to make the fight. Now we're getting Denis Julian stepping in on short notice. Very good power puncher. I think he potentially could show some problems to Aleksandar on the feet, but I'm just going to be trusting Kizriev to get the fight to the ground. He's got some really good wins on his record. I mean, his win over Henrique Shigemoto in less than 1 minute on the Contender Series looks pretty good. His win over Ruzimar Palhares, a former UFC fighter, a guy with a lot of submissions and a guy with a lot of ankle locks and knee bars as well. He showed some pretty good ground and pound. I mean, that fight lasted less than a minute too. Look at all of these guys. His wins inside the distance last less than a minute. Otherwise they go to decision then. Yeah, look, 15 submissions here for Ruzimar Palhares, and he did have a couple of good wins in that UFC run himself. Ankle lock in 31 seconds over Mike Pierce even. And just another heel cook in about a minute. So yeah, this guy Rizma Paharis, I mean, he was old at the time, but it's still a win that looks pretty good. Former UFC fighter. That win is probably the one that got him on the UFC's radar as well. Now he's in the UFC. He's fighting a striker in Denis Julian. I'm taking him to win the fight. I think he's going to get the fight to the ground and just probably ground and pound Denis Julian or find a submission. Originally, I'll be honest, I was kind of on the Kizriev decision side, because I do think Denis Julian is actually a lot better than his record looks. But I'm still going to be trusting in Kizriev's ground game. I do think his ground and pound and his submission game is good enough to hurt Julian and finish him off. I'm going to go Kizriev inside the distance, but if the fight goes the distance and he does get a decision win, I wouldn't be too surprised. So I don't really know how I feel about Kizriev inside the distance or Kizriev decision bets, because he could kind of win ground and pound or submission, you know. So I'm going to be going Kizriev straight in my parlay. Not the best value, but I did get him for better than minus 300 at the time, so can't really complain too much there. Kizriev is my pick with a lot of confidence. If we move on to the next fight, we've got David Dvorak versus Matias Nicolau. Matias Nicolau stepping in for Howley and Paiva on this one. That was the original matchup, Dvorak versus Paiva. Matias Nicolau has stepped in, and I believe that this isn't too short notice of a fight from my understanding, but I do think that David Dvorak is going to get the win. If you're going for a Hail Mary parlay, we use my parlay and you want to add someone else on, I would add David Dvorak on. I do have a decent amount of confidence in him. I do think he's pretty good. Of his 20 wins, 16 of them are by finish, 8 of them by submission, 8 of them by KO, so he is pretty well rounded. I do think he's going to be a bit better on the feet than Matias Nicolau. On the other hand though, for Nicolau, I think that his best chance to get the fight in his favour is to take the fight to the ground. Dvorak is he's pretty slick on the ground himself. Matias Nicolau was 2. He's more of a decision guy. He's got 9 wins by decision. I think like 6 by submission and 3 by knockout. Dvorak also a very slight reach advantage on the feet, which I guess kind of can go in his favour as well. If you look at the records against these guys on the UFC roster, I mean, Dvorak wasn't really fighting the highest level of competition prior to the UFC, but he did beat this guy Arsen Taigibov on Octagon before he managed to get that UFC run. And the Bruno Silva win doesn't really look too bad. I mean, Bruno Silva was 10-5 at one point, but he has knocked a couple of guys out since then. The Juan Similo Ronderos fight, from memory, I think that was a really short notice fight, and Juan Similo Ronderos, even though he's 4-1 and still on the UFC roster, which is pretty interesting as well. I think these guys were also former training partners, so there was kind of a little bit of talk behind that one, but he submitted him in the first round. It was kind of expected that that would happen. But anyway, on the hand of Matias Nicolau, a couple of relatively close fights. I mean, his fight against Tim Elliott showed him a few problems. Manel Karp took him to a split decision, which a lot of people think Manel Karp won. Manel Karp is still debating that he won. I mean, understandably a split decision. If you think that you won, you kind of think that you won. But I think that if Tim Elliott's able to give Matias Nicolau problems, then I do actually believe that Dvorak is also going to be able to give Matias Nicolau problems. And I do think that David Dvorak's a very legit guy. Both of these guys have really good records, and a win for either of these guys is actually going to look incredible on their record. But I'm going to be picking David Dvorak. He's a little bit more experienced. He's like a tiny bit older, I guess. But no, apart from that, I do think David Dvorak has a very slight striking advantage and a very slight reach advantage. I do think he's just a little bit better kind of everywhere. I will be picking Dvorak. I do think fight goes the distance. If Nicolau's going to win though, I mean, I'm not too confident, but I think his path to victory will be by submission. I'm going to go with Dvorak, and I think he's going to win the fight by decision in this one here. In the next one, we've got Bakare Danar, or Danar Bakare versus Chris Gutierrez. Striker versus striker matchup. Danar Bakare on a 3-fight win streak, 3 knockouts inside the first round as well. Definitely worth noting there. He knocked out a very, very tough Brandon Davis in his last one. I think Brandon Davis has returned to the UFC. Knocked him out in a couple of minutes. Knocked out Kevin Natividad in less than a minute. And knocked out an older Guido Canetti. But Guido Canetti just knocked out Chris Martino, so I guess that's kind of cool. Prior to that though, he really was kind of crushing lower level competition. I mean, he did find an 8-3 guy at one point, which is pretty cool. But lower level competition, that Haley Alateng fight, I mean, could have gone both ways, to be honest. But yeah, man, Danar Bakare has shown that he can throw, and he can throw with a lot of power. Chris Gutierrez, on the other hand, 17-3, much more experienced record, a lot more better record, I guess you could say. 17-3 is pretty respectable, and he's been in the UFC for a while now. He's been fighting the UFC since 2018. He's actually on a very good win streak of his own. He's 6 fights unbeaten. Cody Jordan decision draw, which I guess isn't too bad. There's 1 loss to Hayani Barcelos. Once again, not too bad. He's been in there with Timur Valiev as well, and a very extensive amateur record as well. 7 wins by KO, 1 by submission, 9 by decision. On the other hand, Dinar Bakare, he's on that 3-fight KO streak, but he has also got 7 KOs in total over the course of his career. Kickboxing matchup I'm expecting to see, but Dinar Bakare has shown to have more power, in my opinion, than Chris Gutierrez. I think that we're going to see Dinar Bakare strike with a lot of power, but I do think that we're going to see Chris Gutierrez really try and chop with those legs. Dinar Bakare, he's not been dropped, but he's fallen over, I guess you could say, where he slipped a few times off leg kicks, so he is relatively susceptible to leg kicks, but he does have great movement as well, so that will be why Chris Gutierrez is going to be looking for those leg kicks. I think he's got a leg kick KO. He does a leg kick TKO in the UFC only a couple of years ago as well, so definitely something to kind of look out for Chris Gutierrez with those leg kicks. But Dinar Bakare, I mean, he's not going to be intending to give Chris Gutierrez that opportunity to chop at his legs. He's going to be looking to knock him out. Slight favourite, I do agree with the odds on this one. Dinar Bakare, though, you got to be looking for those leg kicks, looking out for the leg kicks from Gutierrez. But I am going to be going Dinar Bakare by KO or by decision. I think more likely a KO, and even if it does go to decision, I think Chris Gutierrez will be landing with some good volume, but I think Dinar Bakare is going to be landing the more fight-changing shots, the more damaging shots, the one that matter the most, the one that make Chris Gutierrez kind of wince a little bit or try and hide the fact that he's not hurt, that sort of thing. I'm going to be going with Dinar Bakare, slight reach advantage as well, and I do think he's a good enough striker to be able to use it. So give me Dinar Bakare on this one here. Alright, this next fight is an interesting one. We've got Sierra McMahon versus Carol Rose. We've got an older lady fighting a young up-and-coming prospect. And just letting you guys know, this is Sierra McMahon's first time being an underdog in the UFC since her fight against Ronda Rousey in 2014. That is absolutely insane to think about. Throughout all of these matchups, her last 5 matchups, Juliana Pena, she was the favourite. She was the favourite to beat Lena Landsberg, the favourite to beat Marion Renault, the favourite to beat Ketlin Vieira, and the favourite to beat Gina Manzani as well. That is absolutely insane to think about if you look at her profile. On the other hand though, Carol Rose, an up-and-coming fighter, she's going to have a lot better stand-up than Sierra McMahon. Sierra McMahon was actually a silver medalist in wrestling in 2004, I believe, which was about 18 years ago when she was only about 23 years old or so. So she's got a great wrestling base. She's been wrestling, must have been her whole life to have a silver medal at that young age and still be fighting at 42. So we've got a lot of experience in wrestling for Sierra McMahon, and a lot of respect from the bookies over her career, because she has been the favourite in every single one of her fights, excluding this one and excluding the Ronda Rousey fight as well. So that's pretty insane to kind of think about, especially considering the people that she's been fighting, such as Ketlin Vieira, who's looking pretty good at the moment. Carol Rosen now the favourite, who's on a decent win streak of her own, I believe a 5-fight win streak. Her one loss recently coming to Melissa Gatto, who's in the UFC right now and is making waves herself. Lara Procopio win, undefeated. Vanessa Mallow, I guess, is an alright win. Win over Bitch Kahea as well, gets an alright win, but like she hasn't really shown amazing wins. I guess this is probably more her coming out party against Sierra McMahon, a woman who I do think is going to test her. I think Carol Rosa is going to be tested against Sierra McMahon here. I think Sierra McMahon's going to be trying to clinch up against the cage. She's going to be trying to take her down. Carol Rosa, though, I think has got a very distinct striking advantage, and also herself, she does have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think Sierra McMahon has also been quite susceptible to guillotine chokes in her career. Maybe not guillotine chokes exactly, but she has been susceptible to oh man, what am I even trying to say? Susceptible to submissions on bottom, I guess you could say. If you look at her losses, 4 of her losses are by submission, and a lot of those submissions are submissions from the bottom, like the arm triangle choke. No, that's from the top. What am I even trying to say? Ignore literally everything I just said because I'm too... Okay. I'm such an idiot, man. Anyway, Carol Rosa, though, she can definitely threaten the submission over Sierra McMahon from bottom, even if it even if it ends up being there, maybe even on top. I'm gonna go Carol Rosa to win the fight. Oh man, that was pretty funny though. You got to admit. But anyway, yeah, let's go Carol Rosa. I think she's gonna win the fight, And Sarah McMahon, she's almost 42 years old as well, so you kind of gotta think about that too. She's not young anymore, is what I'm trying to say. What's up, guys, man? We're gonna be looking at Magny versus Vyacheslav Borshev. I'm very proud to say that I've been on Vyacheslav Borshev since the very beginning, since the Dana White's Contender Series days, I guess you could say, if that even counts as being the very beginning. I don't actually think I did pick him to beat Chris Duncan though, but I did say that he's got a very good chance. He surprised me, and I think he surprised a lot of people, and then he also surprised a lot of people when he beat Dakota Bush. Well, he didn't really surprise, I think he was the favourite, but he did still surprise a lot of people when he knocked him out with that shot. But a lot of things that I'm really trying to tell you guys is that Borshev is not only 6-1, man. He's been in there amateur kickboxing fights. He says, I had a long amateur career. He's talking about his kickboxing career here. I believe I have over 200 fights if I put them together. It was over 200 for sure. Can't say it was easy, especially because I started maybe too early. I had a lot of fights before I started to understand what was going on. And they said it was over 50 fights that he could do technical stuff. And then he said after I decided to focus more and more on kickboxing, I won my first Russian national championship in 2006. Right after that, I just kept doing it. I became the world champ at 19 years old in 2011. This was probably the biggest victory for me in kickboxing. Before that, I was a junior world and European champion. After I won the world championship, I decided I didn't want to be an amateur anymore, and I turned pro. I have 20 kickboxing fights with 18 wins. Because I was such a high level amateur fighter, I never had an easy fight. I always fought against good guys. Yeah, so that's what I'm trying to say, man. This guy has got an extremely high level kickboxing background. K1 world amateur kickboxing champion, 18-2 professional kickboxing record. According to Vyacheslav Borshev, probably like 100 wins in kickboxing at least. Something absolutely insane like that. And I believe him, man. I mean, you look at his striking, it's so good. Magny on the other hand, he's got good striking himself, but he's also able to throw in a few takedowns as well, if he needs to. But on the other hand, though, here's the thing with Vyacheslav Borshev. He's in my parlay, man. I'm picking him to win. He's also training our team alpha male, so his striking's probably going to still be improving, but his ground game's going to be improving as well. It's not like he didn't find some sort of go through some sort of trouble against Dakota Bush. It wasn't a clean immediate win. On the other hand, Matias' return after about a year and a half off against Rafael Alves did not go too well. He got submitted by guillotine quite early on in the fight, unfortunately. I'm going Borshev by KO. I'm really big on Slava Borshev. He's in my parlay. Vyacheslav Borshev and Aleksandar Kizriev is my 2-fight parlay I barely got plus money on it. You might get like minus 120 or something, but I still think it's a good parlay. You can add a third fighter on there if you want. Vyacheslav Borshev though, man, I'm really big on this guy. Magny, I don't really see him having much success on the feet at all. With Borshev, maybe the first minute and a half or so could go alright. I mean, he could try and look for some takedowns if he really wants to, but I just don't really see him cracking Borshev on the feet. I don't see him knocking out Borshev. I don't see him outstriking or outvoluming Borshev. Yeah, I'm going to Vyacheslav Borshev. He's good. He's really good, man. And he's a prospect I like. And he's fighting often. He fought 5 months ago against Chris Duncan. He bounced back 3 months later against Dakota Bush. Now he's fighting again about 2.5 months later or so. I like that mentality. I like the fact that he's bouncing back and he's fighting often, because he is 30 years old as a prospect. That is pretty old as a prospect in the UFC, especially. Magny, though, I don't think they're going to want to let him go because he's an English fighter, and the UK fans do love their fighters. But yeah, man, I don't know. It's not going to look too good for Magny. I think like 2 more losses and he might be going to Eagle FC or PFL or something like that. Vyacheslav Borshev is my pick, man. I think he's going to look so good in this fight. I'm really looking forward to his performance. Alright, this last one we're going to be, well, not the last fight, but the next one we're talking about Neil Magny versus Max Griffin. I'm picking Neil Magny with a pretty decent amount of confidence. I also think that minus 200 is a pretty good line for him. You could maybe add him on to that 2-fight parlay that I'm going to have in the comments. I've also mentioned it a couple of times throughout the videos and also in the intro. I'm going to go with Neil Magny here. I think he's just a bit better than Max Griffin, and that's kind of the truth of it. Max Griffin's about 36 years old. This is really his last and potentially only opportunity to jump into the rankings, which is why I think we're going to have such a big I guess rankings difference, I guess you could say, or a massive step up in competition with Max Griffin. I do feel bad for Neil Magny though. I do feel really bad for him because he's been calling out Khamzat Chimaev pretty much this whole time, and every time Khamzat Chimaev is like, no one wants to fight me, Neil Magny will put his hand up on Twitter, or he'll do something and he'll be like, I want to fight you. Dana White will be, no one wants to fight Khamzat Chimaev, and Neil Magny will be like, I want to fight Khamzat Chimaev. And the poor Neil Magny, man, he never got to fight Khamzat Chimaev, even though he was literally at one point the only fighter calling for it. Apart from Gilbert Burns as well, and they obviously gave him Gilbert Burns. And at one point, even before the Gilbert Burns talks were there, Neil Magny was the only one that wanted to fight Khamzat. He never got the opportunity, bro. I feel bad for him, man. He wouldn't have beaten Khamzat, but it still sucks. Anyway, Neil Magny is my pick. Minus 200, I think, is a really good tag. He's a good enough striker, I think, to utilize this 80-inch reach over the 76-inch reach over Max Griffin. He's also going to be 4 inches taller. He's got good wrestling as well. He's got good enough wrestling to take Max Griffin to the ground and lay on top of him if he really needs to. I think he's got good enough striking to outstrike Max Griffin on the feet using that range advantage. He's got good wins. The Li Jingliang win has aged relatively well, I guess. Robbie Lawler as well, a win, an older Robbie Lawler. He lost to Michael Chiesa, but Michael Chiesa's alright, man. And he did beat Jeff Neal only 10 months ago, which is still, once again, a pretty decent win, in my opinion. So, yeah, man, I'm still going to be picking Neil Magny here. Max Griffin on a decent win streak himself over Carlos Condit. Kenon Song knocked him out, and Ramiz Brahimaj with that weird TKO ear injury. That wasn't that pretty, but in a split decision, which is relatively controversial over loss to Alex Oliveira. Neil Magny, I think, is just the better fighter overall, and it's why I'm going to be picking him. Not really many people picking Max Griffin. I think he's just a little bit, I don't know, man. I just don't think he's really got it to make it to the top 15 here. I think Neil Magny's kind of proved that he can do that, man. I mean, he's been in there with good guys. He's won and he's lost. He's kind of just been there. He wasn't the Ultimate Fighter as well, which I kind of like. But yeah, it's an interesting one. But I'm picking Neil Magny to win the fight. Man, in this next one, we're going to be looking at Jennifer Meyer versus Manon Fiorot. Man, I like Manon Fiorot as a prospect, but it's a real massive shame that she is 32 years old. If she was a little bit younger, man, I feel like she'd be a lot more hyped up, but because she is 32, she's not as hyped up as she was. Just going to talk about this right now. I will be picking Manon Fiorot to win the fight, but minus 400 I think is quite disrespectful to Jennifer Meyer. I do think it is quite disrespectful, actually. Manon Fiorot is such a beast, man. I mean, she knocked out Tabitha Ricci in the second round. She knocked out Victoria Leonardo in the second round as well. Prior to that, though, she was knocking girls out as well. She went in the decision with Meyer Bueno Silva. I think the Jessica I win, if she knocked her out in the first round, it would have been really satisfying, because, let's be honest, who really likes Jessica I? On the other hand, though, Jennifer Meyer, she put on a pretty decent performance against Valentina Shevchenko was the name that I was trying to come up with. She actually, I think she won a round on a scorecard, or a couple of scorecards, over Valentina. She took her down. Valentina wasn't really able to escape the position, and she found success on the ground. But the problem is, though, Jennifer Meyer, she's really, she's not too great at getting the fight to the ground, but once the fight is to the ground, that's when she finds her success. I think Manon Fiorot is very strong. I think she's going to be able to show that strength, and she's going to surprise a lot of people with some good takedown defense, some good clinch work as well when Jennifer Meyer tries to go for it. I like Fiorot. I don't know about the KO prop, and I don't really know about a prop in general for this fight, because Fiorot does have the power to potentially put away Meyer. Manon Fiorot by KO or decision is my official pick. I think she's going to be landing the much more powerful shots on the feet. I think she's going to keep the fight on the feet as well. Very slight reach advantage as well. Height advantage too. Yeah, I'm going to be trusting Manon Fiorot to get the job done in this fight here. Not too much confidence considering the odds, man. Minus 400. I don't know if she's a minus 400 favorite in my opinion, but I'm going to be going with Manon Fiorot to win the fight. She's a beast. She actually is a beast, so it's going to be a great fight. And if we look at the next fight, we've got Alexei Olynyk versus Eliana Latifi. When this fight was first made, I was picking Alexei Olynyk to win. I thought he was going to get a submission and his 60th win. But the more I think about it, man, I don't actually know if Eliana Latifi's the guy that's going to give it to him. I think Alexei Olynyk is going to just have to be given an opponent which he's got almost a guaranteed win over at this point. I mean, he's almost 45 years old. Eliana Latifi isn't young himself. He is 39 almost himself. And he does have really, really good wrestling. He went to decision with Derek Lewis in a pretty close decision, in my opinion. A split decision win over Tanner Bosa, which I guess is alright. beat over St. Preux by submission. The 3 losses though: Corey Anderson, Volkan Oezdemir, and Derek Lewis. They're pretty legitimate guys that's been fighting in there. He's only 5'10". He is a human fridge and doesn't really have a neck, and he never has been submitted as well. So good luck to Alexei Olynyk trying to snatch that neck there. But yeah, man, I don't know if this is Alexei Olynyk's fight to win. I think Alexei Olynyk is obviously going to have the better jiu-jitsu, but Latifi's got really good wrestling himself. But if he does slip up, potentially Alexei Olynyk could look for a submission. But that's the thing, Latifi never really has slipped up on the mat because he hasn't been submitted before with his wrestling base. So I'm kind of going to trust that. I think Latifi also has power. We're fighting a 45-year-old man at this point, dude. I mean, did beat Vladimir Verdum by split decision, submitted Maurice Green, who's no longer in the UFC. Derek Lewis knocked him out. Chris Daukaus knocked him out. Sergey Spivak took him to a decision, but that's Sergey Spivak, who doesn't really have too much power in the heavyweight division. Latifi's got good ground and pound. He could definitely finish by KO or a decision. I don't think this is the most exciting heavyweight matchup ever made, to be honest. I'm going to be going to Latifi. Not a lot of confidence in it though. He is a slight favourite, and I kind of agree. Alexei Olynyk though, I do think that if we're going to get that 60th win, which I know everyone, well, I really want to see it, and probably him wants to see it, we're going to have to give him an easier opponent, to be honest. I think Latifi is going to get the job done. Alright, let's get into it. We've got Matt Brown versus Bryan Barberena. Really looking forward to this one. Matt Brown, he's Ultimate Fighter Season 7 alumni. One of my favourite seasons because Matt Brown was on it. That was absolutely a hilarious season, in my opinion. The guys made fun of Matt Brown just for being Matt Brown, to be honest. Pretty much the whole season. It was really funny. It was a great season. I really liked watching it, and I watched it last year as well, so it's pretty fresh in my mind, I guess. Matt Brown though, he's got a little bit of a reach advantage. He's got power in the hands. I think he's got like 17 wins by knockout, and like 16 wins by knockout, and like 6 wins by submission. No, that can't be right. He's got 2 wins by decision anyway. 23 wins, 21 finishes is what I'm trying to say. This guy is absolutely insane. Bryan Barberena, on the other hand, I'm gonna sound like a hater when I say this, man, but I just don't rate Bryan Barberena that highly. To be honest, I don't really get the hype behind him. I don't really see how everyone finds him this really exciting fighter. I mean, he barely beat Darian Weeks on short notice, and Darian Weeks is arguably not even UFC level at this moment of his career. Matt Brown though, he's 41 years old, so pretty good opportunity for Bryan Barberena to win this one, but I'm going to go with Matt Brown by knockout. He did knock out Diego Lima, knocked him out pretty stiff as well. Matt Brown, man, he's kind of done it all at this point. He's got his own gym, Immortal Martial Arts Center, which I can kind of respect, actually. So he's knocking out guys even at 41 years old. I do think this is probably one of his last rodeos. He did knock out Diego Sanchez, which even Kevin Lee couldn't do recently, so I guess that's a pretty good look on his record as well. 23-18, not the greatest record in the world, but he did come into the UFC at 7-6, I believe. So he has gone 16-12 in the UFC. So, I mean, very good UFC career. He's been in there for almost 30 fights. Maybe he wants to make it to 30 fights. And I do think a win over Bryan Barberena will guarantee him another fight. I mean, even if he lost, he'll get another fight in UFC. No chance he won't. But Matt Brown by knockout, I like it. I do like Matt Brown by knockout. And I do think that he's going to bring it. I don't know about Bryan Barberena. I guess he's just going to do his own thing. But Matt Brown by knockout is a pretty confident pick for me. Not that confident, actually, because he's 41. But it's a pick that I like, anyway. Alright, boys, let's get it now. We've got KaraFrance, and you guys know. If you know, you know. I'm from New Zealand. Oh, dude, why did I pick Dan Hooker last week, though? Oh, it's a real good question. Because Arnold Allen, man, at one point was the underdog. That would have been such a good bet. But I just couldn't bring myself to do it, man. I couldn't bring myself to not pick for Dan Hooker. Oh, and the pain never really ends. But I'm picking with my head and my heart on this one, man. We've got KaraFrance fighting on his 29th birthday. Still a young guy with so much experience, 23-9, fighting Askar Askarov. Once again, a young guy, not quite 30 years old yet, which I'd like to see. I like to see prospects under the age of 30 in the UFC, man. I respect it. KaraFrance, though, he's been in the year. He's on the year of the Ultimate Fighter. I think it was one of season 15 or something like that. The season the winner would have fought Demetrius Johnson. He found some success on that season, I think. Where are we looking? Yeah, season 24. Not even close whatsoever. But yeah, man, he knocked out Terrence Mitchell, and then lost to Alejandro Pantoja. Didn't get the call up to the UFC, but went on a decent win streak from there. Went on a win streak in the UFC, and only recently has he been showing his power. He knocked out Rogerio Bontorin at the end of the first round after getting dominated on the ground, and he knocked out Cody Garbrandt, and he showed really good stand-up in that fight. Askren Askarov, on the other hand, man, you guys know I'm picking KaraFrance to win this one, and yeah, it's good, man, it's good. Tim Elliott. It all comes down to Tim Elliott, the Tim Elliott fight. Tim Elliott showed him problems, and I don't like it. As simple as that. Brandon Moreno also beat him as well. Simple as that again. Yeah, I think if Tim Elliott can show Askren Askarov problems in the grappling, I think that KaraFrance is probably going to have good enough takedown defense to keep the fight on the feet if he needs it. He's shown really good submission defense against Rogerio Bontorin. He knocked out Cody Garbrandt only a couple of months ago. He's motivated. He believes that he can be a champion. I mean, good for him. I just think he's going to have to get over Askren Askarov first, and I do actually believe he's going to be able to get over Askren Askarov first. Askren Askarov has obviously had problems with the weight cut in the past, came in at 127 in his last fight against Joey Benavidez, which is why he didn't actually get to have a title shot after that. And Askren Askarov as well, man, he's good, but he's also deaf, and he's not going to be able to hear what his corner's going to be trying to tell him. KaraFrance is really going to be setting up traps on the feet. I know that's a really terrible reason to pick KaraFrance, but man, KaraFrance is going to be setting up traps on the feet. You watched that fight against Cody Garbrandt, and KaraFrance really brought it to him and showed him some really good striking in that fight, and I just really can't pick against that. I love KaraFrance's power. I love his striking. I think he's going to show it to Askren Askarov, and I genuinely believe we're going to get a very big underdog win. I think that the dogs are going to be barking from New Zealand, and we're going to get an underdog win here in KaraFrance. Do not let me down, boy. Dan Hooker, man, oh, he ruined me yesterday. You guys have no idea how upset I was when I saw Dan Hooker lose. Oh, dude, like, I was so upset, man. I couldn't really do anything. But anyway, KaraFrance, I trust in him to get the win. I really do. And I hope he wins, otherwise I probably will cry. Alright, this next fight we're going to be looking at Joanne Wood versus Alexa Grasso. I will be picking the favourite in Alexa Grasso because I do think Joanne Wood is, she's starting to fade a little bit. Only a 2-fight losing streak, but it's becoming a little bit more obvious that she's starting to fall off recently. I mean, she lost to Taylor Santos, got dropped in that fight, which isn't really the greatest look. I mean, it is Taylor Santos, who was a beast, but Taylor Santos wasn't able to drop Roxanne Modafferi, so I guess that's probably all you really need to hear. Lost to Lauren Murphy in a split decision. I mean, at this point as well, Lauren Murphy, yeah, beat Jessica I, who I guess is Jessica I. Lost to Jennifer Meyer, who's also on this card, and she definitely lost to Andrea Lee. That was a robbery, in my opinion. Alexa Grasso, on the other hand, on a win streak, she's got a very good striking. I do think she's got crispier striking than Joanne Wood. I think she's going to show it here. She's almost fighting for the greatest gym in the world, Lobo Gym. It could have been Lobov Gym, headed by Artem Lobov. I know that thing doesn't actually exist, but if it did, only the greatest would fight there. Alexa Grasso, though, she was hurting Macy Barber a little bit on the feet. She was actually showing Macy Barber that she isn't actually as good of a striker as Macy Barber thinks she is. She showed Jeon Kim pretty good striking as well. Jeon Kim just recently beat Priscilla Cachoeira, in my opinion, got robbed pretty badly. I mean, outlanded Priscilla Cachoeira 2-1. I'm just ranting in this video at this point, to be honest. Lost to Carla Esparza in a majority decision. Not too bad of a look, really. Carla Esparza next in line for the title. In fact, that fight has actually been booked for UFC 274. Rose Namajunas versus Carla Esparza. I'm picking Grasso. Decision. Just Grasso in general is a decent pick. I do think that Joanne Wood is starting to slowly fall away, and her striking's just not what it used to be. I think if this fight was a couple of years ago, I probably would have picked Joanne Wood, because I did actually like her at one point, but now I just think that the younger girls are catching up to her, and I think that Alexa Grasso is probably one of those girls to catch up to the older generation of female fighters in Joanne Wood. So I do respect Joanne Wood, and but I do think that Alexa Grasso does get the job done here. And now we're at the main event. We're at Curtis Blaydes versus Chris Daukaus. If you're watching the full video and you've made it this far, feel free to consider dropping a subscribe. I also made a Discord because I had 1,500 subscribers the other day. I forgot to mention that in my intro because I'm an idiot, but I did make a Discord. It's in the description. I'm probably going to put it in the comments as well, so hopefully get a couple of people in there so I'm not by myself and lonely. And yeah, just really, really lonely. So Curtis Blaydes versus Chris Daukaus is a fight that I'm really looking forward to. If you guys don't know, Chris Daukaus does actually have pretty legitimate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu on the ground, and Curtis Blaydes, in my opinion, is one of the best wrestlers, if not the best pure wrestler in the heavyweight division at the moment, anyway in the top 15, in my opinion anyway. Curtis Blaydes, he really does present some challenges to top levels of competition, and I do think that he, at one point, if he can kind of keep it up, he's still pretty young for the heavyweight division. I think that he could potentially be challenging for a title with a couple of good wins. He recently did beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik in a fight which I think wasn't the greatest for his career. A lot of people were calling him boring after that fight. A lot of people didn't really like the fight because he did what he does, and he wrestled Jairzinho Rozenstruik to a win, which is a very impressive win in my opinion, but it really wasn't an exciting fight to watch. I think if Curtis Blaydes is able to get a TKO win over Chris Daukaus, that's going to be the best thing for his career, by ground and pound that is. He did recently get knocked out by Derek Lewis, which I guess went viral. Probably not the best look for him, but he was actually on the feet with Derek Lewis for a while. He was just trying to set up a takedown. Derek Lewis read the takedown perfectly and knocked him out with an uppercut. Prior to that though, beat Aleksandar Volkov, good win. Junior Dos Santos by KO, good win. Shamil Abdurakhimov, ground and pound, pretty good win at the time. Not so great of a win now, but a good win at the time. Chris Daukaus, on the other hand, was on a great win streak himself. Parker Porter, I guess, Rodrigo Nascimento, Alexei Olynyk, Shamil Abdurakhimov KO, and then he headlined his first fight night against Derek Lewis. Got a massive opportunity, but then he got knocked out. I think it was in the first round, so not really the greatest look really. But Curtis Blaydes, he's really worked on his stand-up. His stand-up has definitely gotten a lot better. But we all know that he's going to be looking to wrestle with Chris Daukaus, and I do think he is going to use that elite wrestling to wrestle with Chris Daukaus and get the win that way. Whether it's a decision or a ground and pound TKO, maybe even some sort of submission, but he's really not going to submit the black belt in Chris Daukaus in my opinion. Chris Daukaus on the bottom though, he could be throwing up submissions himself. He does have a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I believe. We haven't really seen it in the UFC. He's kind of fallen in love with his kickboxing, which probably is the best thing for Curtis Blaydes, because if Chris Daukaus is thinking that he's going to be most comfortable on the feet, then he's going to be worrying about the takedown from Curtis, and I think Curtis is going to be looking for that takedown. Curtis Blaydes by decision or KO, but in my opinion, Curtis Blaydes really does need a KO win in this one here. He really does need a ground and pound win or some sort of finish to kind of boost his stock up again, because he kind of lost a bit of stock when he lost to Derek Lewis, and he lost a bit of stock, I guess, when he beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik, but a lot of fans weren't really too keen on that fight. I mean, I think it's a great win, to be honest, on his record, but a lot of people weren't really too high up on that win. So I think a win in the fight night main event over Chris Daukaus inside the distance would be a great win for Curtis Blaydes, and would really get him back in that top 5 picture, or top 5 talks, or something like that, and get him a top ranked opponent, man. I mean, I don't know who Curtis Blaydes has been calling for, but I think a win over Chris Daukaus will probably put him in the mix of maybe even like fighting the rankings like Tom Aspinall. I don't think he's going to fight Tom Aspinall after this fight for sure, but I think that will probably get him in the talks of fighting guys around that rank anyway. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I like the fight in my opinion. I think it's great. Main event of a fight night, pretty good, highly ranked heavyweights. Chris Daukaus is just coming off a loss on the fight night main event, so interesting to see. But I like the fight anyway. I'm going to be going with Curtis Blaydes to win the fight for sure.